Hello and welcome to Rando Rob. Each week on Rando Rob, I'll be showing and discussing one item from my large collection of collections. New shows appear every Monday, and throughout the week, I'll be adding older episodes of Rando Rob that were previously only available to my Patreon subscribers. You can watch episodes of Rando Rob on YouTube at youtube.com/Rob O'Hara. Just look for the Rando Rob playlist. Audio versions of the show are available on my website at podcast.robohara.com or through iTunes. Just search for Rando Rob. Thanks for watching or listening, and I hope you enjoy this vintage episode of Rando Rob. For this episode of Rando Rob, I pulled a device off of, not a device, I pulled an item off the shelf to share with everyone, as you can see based on the picture up there and the pixel screen behind me, Pixu. You can guess that it has to do with Dragon's Lair. And if you know what collection I have on the shelves up there, then you might be able to guess. You might guess it. You know what? I mean, I think, like, from this sound, I could guess what that is. And that is the Dragon's Lair Lunchbox. Oh, man, do I love this thing. I love looking at it. You know, one of the best things about collecting metal lunchboxes, the best thing about collecting lunchboxes in general, and I really, really, really prefer metal lunchboxes, but there's a cutoff date, like 83, 84 is the cutoff date. You know, some of them were earlier than that, but like Return of the Jedi, like when I was a kid, my Return of the Jedi lunchbox was plastic. I had a red plastic. I think it's red. It might be blue. Yeah, my red one's Empire Strikes Back. It's good. Yeah, it's red also. I have a red Return of the Jedi that has a sticker on it that has Wicket, the Ewok, and R2-D2. So, you know, that's the bad thing about the plastic ones is that, I mean, the lunch boxes themselves are all the same, and they just have different stickers applied to the front of them. But the cool thing about so anyway, I sidetracked myself. But the cool thing about lunchboxes in general is that they are artwork. Like, I have this whole wall of them up there, and when I look, I see all these little square 6x9, whatever they are, pictures of things that I love. I mean, I'm looking up here right now, and there's Clash of the Titans and Pac-Man and Gremlins and the Jungle Book and all these things that I loved as a kid, and I get to look at them anytime I look up at that wall. And of course, Dragon's Lair is up there as one of my favorite lunchboxes from the collection. But the great thing about the metal lunchboxes is that you have so many different types of artwork. I keep showing you this side, which has obviously Dirk the Daring there. He's got his sword. This looks like a scene from the game, perhaps. Or maybe from the intro. I mean, I remember these guys, these mole guys, and this is a snake that comes down that he swings that part of the game. You remember that? So it's all these things that are reminiscent parts of the game. But if you get tired of displaying that side, you just turn it around and you got this other cool artwork in here. You've got Singe, and he's breathing the fire. Look at that. And there's Dirk down there and stuff. And then this isn't normally something that I would look at while they're on the wall, but I remember as a kid taking your lunchbox to school because I took my lunch to school off and on, like not every day, every week, but multiple times a week. I would say I took my lunch. And then when you would set it down, you have all these little pictures. This is actually, I think that's from the end screen of the game where you rescue Daphne. And he's holding Daphne there. Of course, there's a Singe in the background. And you have some other different artworks from the game here. There's Dirk and some other stuff going on. There's more stuff from the game there. There's even artwork here underneath the handle. Now I do have the thermos for this, but it is up on the shelf. I'm trying to read. I can't see if this is upside down or not. Yeah, there it is. So there was only a few brands of these. Thermos, is of course a brand, but a big brand that made a lot of the metal lunchboxes was Aladdin. And so if you look at the handle this way, I don't know if I'll be able to. Yeah, there you can kind of see it. It's not painted on the handle, but it's just a raised, not embossed, but whatever the opposite of embossed is the word Aladdin right there. Maybe it's embossed. So the way I have my lunchboxes on display up there is I have a lunchbox, then a thermos, lunchbox, thermos. A lot of times when you find these out in the wild, they don't have the thermos. But when I first began buying lunchboxes and actively looking for lunchboxes, a lot of times you would find only a thermos. So I have like a quick, remember the chocolate rabbit quick? I have a quick thermos. I have a Last Starfighter thermos, but I don't have the lunchbox. I would like to get that one someday. But I have a few random thermoses. So this allows, I have enough lunchboxes without thermoses and thermoses without lunchbox that I'm able to alternate them all the way down. And in a lot of places, I just have lunchboxes next to one another. But anyway, I'm telling you what, I mean, this has not had anything in it in years. They just have this smell. I can smell a peanut butter and jelly sandwich inside a little sandwich baggie. I would have a little bag of Doritos that my mom would send, a little handful of Doritos. She would send me with a little sandwich baggie of maybe a handful, 4 or 5 Oreos or something like that. You could use the thermos, and if you haven't seen one of these in a while, there is a drawing on the back of all these that show you where the thermos goes and which way it goes, which way is up. You want to have this up this way because this is where your handle is, so that way it doesn't, it's not upside down. It wouldn't spill out. Although, of course, you'd take it all over the place. And if you remember, the lid of the thermos could also be a cup. Although I don't think. I mean, I do remember doing that, but it was more of us like being funny or something, and you'd have a little cup and you'd be like, drink your milk or Kool-Aid, one or the other. I always got milk or Kool-Aid in mine. But man, there's something about that. It's like if you've ever worked on arcade games, like an arcade cabinet, there's a unique smell which doesn't really make sense, but it's like the combination of wood and like electricity. It's like this hot wood smell. And when I guarantee you, if you were to blindfold me and stick my head in the back of an arcade cabinet and say, smell, and what is this? I would say, this is an arcade cabinet. I mean, they just have a smell to them, and lunchboxes just have that kind of weird metallic milk, something kind of smell, and they're just there's something unique about it. Dragon's Lair is first of all, I remember I saw Dragon's Lair at Bally Lamont's arcade. Bally Lamont's, which I've talked about, we had like different, everybody had their independent local arcades, right? But then Bally Lamont's was like a chain, a national chain of Bally's, right? And so originally I think it was Lamont's Arcade, and then Bally bought it, so it became Bally Lamont's Arcade, and it was in Crossroads Mall, which was the biggest local mall. I mean, it was like 20 miles away from me or something, but my grandma lived 20 miles on the other side of Crossroads Mall. I did a whole episode about Crossroads Mall. So my grandma would drive to Crossroads Mall, and my mom and my sister and I would drive, and we would meet my grandma there. And there was this little area at one end of the mall that had Ballet Le Mans arcade. There's something else right there, maybe a bookstore or a shoe store, and then on the other side was this hobby shop that had like all these like different models. That's where you went and you got D&D manuals and D&D modules, and in the middle of the front of the store was where the guy working the register sat, and he was surrounded by glass display cases that had trays of D&D dice, and you would say, hey, pull those out for me. I have a set of green crystal D&D dice that came from that hobby store. I used to go and flip through. I've never played Warhammer, but Warhammer is a board game where you take miniatures and paint them, and there was this Warhammer book that had like all these armies that were painted, and I would go look at those pieces. I thought that was so cool. But that, I mean, you could stay in that little area of the mall right there and be entertained for hours. But so, when you had your little mom and pop places, they couldn't always afford the brand new arcade games. But Ballet Le Mans had stuff like opening weekend. Like I remember, they had this area that was raised. When you came in, it was like a raised platform, and it had, the chasing light bulbs, and it said, new arrival and stuff. That's where I first saw Gauntlet. I saw Gauntlet, I mean, like when it was a new game, like there was a line of people to play it. I have those memories of the 80s. And Ballet Le Mans is the first place that I saw Dragon's Lair. Dragon's Lair is the... I don't include Punch-Out in this list, but Dragon's Lair is the only arcade game that I ever saw where they had taken a second monitor and put it up on top. I thought that was some sort of unique thing. Like I've heard people say, well, they did that with Popular Machines or whatever. But if you listen to people's stories and you look up stories, almost everyone that tells that story of saying they saw one of those, it was always on Dragon's Lair. So I think it might have been an option for Dragon's Lair cabinets. Now I'm sure, people always say like Popular Machines had it, like I remember Dragon's Lair, but Dragon's Lair is the only one I actually remember seeing that on, at least, at the arcades around here. But I, like every kid, I remember watching someone play Dragon's Lair thinking it was cool. And then Dragon's Lair was definitely the first machine I remember that cost 50 cents to play. It was the first one that I had ever seen. And I tried to play it, and I think, if you made it, you got to the first scene and you died, it just kind of jumped you forward to the second scene. So I died on the first scene, I died on the second, and I died on the third, and that was it. That's as far as I got. I couldn't get past that, and so I would watch other people play it, but I was not good at it. Maybe someday I'll do a whole podcast about Dragon's Lair, and I'll retell all these stories. I do remember either somebody having a book or a magazine or something that had a walkthrough for Dragon's Lair and reading that, and it didn't help me at all. I've played all the home versions. Didn't help me. I'm just not good at the game. I'm not good at the timing. I don't remember the way to move. Dragon's Lair has been out for 30 years, 35 years, 40 years. It might be close to 40 years at this point. It might be 40 years. I don't remember what year it came out. If it's 82, man, yeah, it might be 40 years at this point. But regardless, I'm as bad at it today as I was when the game came out. The best thing that ever happened to me in regards of Dragon's Lair is that when it came out on YouTube, someone, where you could watch the video from beginning to end. And I did buy the, there were DVD releases that you could play on your home DVD player, and you played it with your remote, and you would use the remote to move back and forth. And I was no good at that. Not only was I still wasn't good, but there was like a delay, which made it even harder. But those had an option to watch the whole game play itself from beginning to end. If I remember right, it's like 11, 12 minutes or something like that. And that was all I ever wanted. And I watched it. I know people have uploaded it on YouTube. You can watch a complete playthrough now. Yeah, that's the only way I'll ever see the ending of Dragon's Lair is by a video that someone else has recorded. That's fine with me. Anyway, when I was in elementary school, everybody had to line up because the teacher kept everyone's lunch tickets. We had lunch tickets, and you had to line up. I think in alphabetical order maybe or something, and then because the teacher had the box and she would hand out all the tickets, and then you held your ticket and you went down there and then you had to give them back to the teacher. Or no, the lunch lady kept them and then gave it back to the teacher, you know. And so, but if you had, so you had to line up and do all this stuff. But if you brought your lunch, you could just go. So the lunch kids got to go to the front of the line and they were the first ones down there. So when I brought my lunch, and all the lunch, like if you brought your lunchbox and went down there, you could line up in any order and sit by your friends. But if you had your ticket, it was just whatever order the ticket was in, and that's who you had to sit by for lunch. I remember, many times like sitting between these two girls that wouldn't talk to me. It was very sad and lonely lunch for me. But if you brought your lunch and your buddy brought his lunch, then you could go sit together, and that was pretty cool. They did a experiment one whole year, I believe it was when I was in sixth grade, where they changed the routine multiple times of gifted class, of putting kids together and putting grades apart and doing it half a day, like twice a week, half a day, like Wednesday mornings and Friday afternoons and weird things like that. But when I was in sixth grade, they decided what they would do is combine gifted for the entire school district. So this is like 6 elementary schools, and one day a week they would bus us all to one school, and that we would all have different classes and do that. And it was a lot of fun. As a kid, it was also terrible on your social life. I mean, there was nothing that made you feel more normal as a kid than having to leave your class and go get on a bus and be taken to some special school and then come back and then have everybody wonder where you were and how come they didn't get to go. And, it was not good socially, but they tried. It was a good attempt. But when you did that, you had to bring a lunch. I think you had to bring a lunch. I don't remember for sure, but I'm pretty sure you had to. But it was definitely easier because then you could go sit with your friends, or you had to bring cash. That's what it was if you went there, because your lunch ticket didn't work over there. So you had to either bring cash or bring your lunch. And so I always took my lunch over there. I usually had Star Wars lunch boxes. I wish I had a friend that had this lunch box, and we were all jealous of it. And we would, literally, we would look at the artwork, and one of the greatest, I mean, it's hard to convey this by looking at a two-dimensional screen, but of course, the artwork on all the metal ones, is raised, it is embossed. I mean, this is the video with the most use of the word embossed. But as a kid, you could just run your fingers, like you could feel, where all the little raises in the artwork are. And what a great, I mean, it's like a textile memory, you know what I mean? By the way, this lunchbox, like all the ones I have, are heavily used. This one definitely has some dents. It has some rust spots. Don't care in the slightest. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. To me, that is just memories that some kid had this, loved it, and now I have it, and I love it too. So anyway, definitely a highlight of my lunchbox collection. I will be putting it back up there. There's a little hole right in the middle of the whole wall. When I put the lunchboxes up there, I had no rhyme or reason as to how I was going to display them, what order I was going to put them in. But I did try to put a few together. So all my Star Wars ones are right in the middle. And then the Star Wars ones, I have a Muppets in Space And so it's next to the Star Wars ones because it looks like Star Wars, and then next to the Muppets in Space are my Muppet Show ones, and then next to Muppet Show is Muppet Babies, which is a cartoon, and then it kind of fades into some other cartoons, and also next to the Muppets is Sesame Street. So I didn't really originally I didn't plan it, but as I was putting them up there, I was like, well, this is like that, and that is like this, you know. And of course, like next to the Muppets is Dark Crystal. So there was some method to the madness. It wasn't planned out originally, but as I was putting them up there. So I do have a few video game related lunchboxes over on this side, and the Pac-Man one is over there, and I have some newer ones that I got of like Robotron, I think, a Defender and Joust. Those are down there, and so the Dragon's Lair one is kind of like in between some cartoon ones and the video game one, so it's kind of like a little transition one, but it's bright yellow. It really stands out on the wall, and I do enjoy seeing it. Last thing I'll say is this. A few years ago, if you listen to the podcast and stuff, you know that I went back to college and I got my master's degree in professional writing, and it was really a challenge time-wise to do because I did it at a time when I was working full-time, and so basically I had to get 8 hours worth of work in, even on school days where I had classes that were in the middle of the day. And so I used, I don't want to say tricks because I never did anything deceitful, but I used time blocks where I took leave, like I took, an hour or 2 hours off of work during the day. And then I did some things where like I had a class around my lunchtime. So I took a class at the lunchtime, but then I didn't have another class until 6 p.m. But this college is 45 miles away from my house. So it didn't make sense after a 1 o'clock class to drive home 45 miles, wait a few hours, drive back 45 miles, drive home another 45 miles. And so what I ended up doing was taking my lunch, to college. The other thing was, because of the schedule and the way things worked out, I arrived on campus at 6 a.m. And that way I could get in like 3 or 4 hours worth of work before my first class came up, So because I got there so early in the morning, I got like the best parking spot on campus. Like I would park, in this parking garage that was across the street from my college in like spot number 1 or whatever spot I wanted, the closest spot wasn't always the best. But I would always get the best spot. I got my pick of the litter. But if you left and then came back, there would not be any parking. It was terrible. So once you were there, you kind of had to stay planted, So I would take my lunch, and for over a year, what I decided to do, because I only went down there 1 day a week for this class, it was on Wednesdays, and so I started taking my lunch in a metal lunchbox, or any of my lunchboxes. And there was kind of a rotunda area in the middle of my building. And so I would go there, and the kids, and I call them kids, students that were 20 years younger than me 25 years younger than me would walk by and not even look twice. I think they might think, oh, that guy, that guy's a little special. But the professors, many of the professors were my age or within, 10 years older. And I had a guy come by, and he goes, "Is that Pac-Man lunchbox?" And I go, "Yeah." And we started talking about Pac-Man, and 1 or 2 other teachers would walk by. And so I made a point every week. I never used the same lunchbox twice. Eventually when I ran out, but I have like 50 lunchboxes, so I had a long time where I could do this, but I would bring one. And so this is definitely one of the ones that I brought. And I remember this one professor coming by, and he's like, "Dragon's Lair, I remember that." We talked about playing Dragon's Lair and stuff, and it was a fun conversation starter. I didn't have a lot in common with a lot of my classmates, which was, they were everybody was super nice. I was nice to them, they were nice to me, but when you're 25 years older than somebody, it's can be tough to relate. They're talking about saving up money so they could go to Starbucks, or wondering whether or not they're going to have to get a job in between semesters. And I had a house and a wife and two kids that were in middle school or high school. So I was just at a different stage of my life, you know what I mean? And because of the age differences, I tended to relate to the professors more than I did my classmates, which doesn't say anything. It doesn't reflect anything about my classmates. What that means is that I was closer in age to my professors than I was to my classmates. But this was a good conversation starter to take these in. I keep showing that side, but I love this. This is the side normally I display. By the way, every now and then I will bring in a stepladder and I will go through the lunchboxes and I will take them all and flip them around just so I can look at the other side of them. And it just changes the look of the room, and I enjoy them so much. Anyway, I have a complete script finished for Like a DOS, which I will be recording in about an hour. So you can expect a new episode of Like a DOS later tonight. So that will be 3 podcasts for the month. I try to shoot for 4, but that'll be 3 plus some Rando Rob videos. And I had another video that I just dropped in the Patreon earlier today that if you like behind the scenes videos and you want to see how the sausage is made, as they say, then that may be one that you'll enjoy. So thanks for all the support. Thanks for all the good wishes for my dad. He's still in the hospital right now, but hopefully getting out soon. And thanks for all the support on the shows and the podcast and everything. You guys, literally there are months where I think I would throw in the towel if it weren't for you guys out there. So I appreciate the support. Thanks, everybody.